Podquest
Mythologies.
Do you wanna test your might tonight? I think that I might. Kung Lao is here to join the fight, and that's pretty tight. With good friends, Taja and Zero, facing foes like Scorpion and Sub-Zero, but not the ones you like. We got Shang Tsung, 4 packs, Genevieve, Baby Dad. We got Reptile, Quan Chi, Noob Saibot, Baby Dad. Do you wanna test your might tonight? I think that you might. Corey and Neil are in the fight. Wait, did I read this right? Watching every episode of Conquest. Corey likes F1. Neil has a Genesis. Okay? Do you wanna test your might tonight? I think you just might. Corey Neil, not being impolite. But hey, are you alright? Please tell me you're alright. Worried about you boys. Seriously.
Do we have to go to Australia?
Oh my god.
Oh. That was only my second time hearing it. It's still extremely good.
It's so good.
I didn't pick up that he was increasingly getting confused just about us and what we were doing. Like why anybody would do this. I didn't catch did I read that right? It was like, why are 2 people deciding to do this?
Thank you, Dominic, our friend from the internet. Thank you so much for doing that.
Yeah, incredible. What an unfortunate waste of your time, but we really appreciate it.
Yes, writing a song about this massive waste of our own time.
Yeah, it's really good.
We love it.
Also really big fan of fighting Scorpion and Sub-Zero, but not the ones you like.
I know. Wow. I think we made it. This is how you know you've made it, right? When someone writes a song
I think so.
About your podcast.
I think it's when you start getting songs and voicemails from the other side of the globe, I think is when it happens. Kind of unreal.
So I want to put out a call for submissions on the show for our wrap-up.
Yes, and by that we mean that everybody has to wrap their final thoughts on the podcast or this show, and we are doing a wrap-up RAP episode. That's not currently true, but it might be. So if enough people do that, sure. But I think more what we mean is anybody who's been following along, watching along, or is catching up in time for the finale, which is still a couple weeks away, so it's not like a total mad dash. We would love to hear from you about what you thought about the show, or I guess our show, or just whatever.
More specifically, I want to hear about people's experience with Mortal Kombat Conquest.
Okay.
I mean,
I didn't know. We didn't discuss this before right now.
If listeners out there have just verbal hate mail you want to send us, I guess you can do that.
We have not done anything objectionable enough for somebody to bother sending us verbal hate mail.
Yeah, we've got 2 more episodes of Conquest to cover before we say goodbye to the greatest television show ever made and move on to the rest of the Mortal Kombat series, the greatest movies ever made and the greatest cartoon show ever made, and potentially more. So, yes, we want to hear opinions on Mortal Kombat Conquest and things that listeners may be looking forward to for the rest of the things we're going to cover on the show, for either live-action movie or Defenders of the Realm or, I don't know, general Mortal Kombat shit overall.
I'd be especially curious to hear anybody who saw that this show was happening was like, sure, I'll watch this show for the first time. Because as somebody who's doing that, it's a weird choice to make. Just sort of on a whim in 2021. So bless them for that. But also anybody who's maybe revisiting it after 20 years, that's probably weird.
Dominic, we're looking at you. Paul, we're looking at you. Jeff, we're looking at you. Brandon, we're looking at you. Jason, we're looking at you.
We're talking directly at you.
Carissa, who I don't think is watching the show, but is listening to the podcast, I'm looking at you.
Yeah, what is your sense of what this show is based purely on how we've described it?
Send us, go to our Anchor page, anchor.fm/MK Podquest, and send us a voice memo on there, or just, record it into your phone and email it to mkpodquest@gmail.com. You got about 2 weeks, but for today, we are going to do one of our classic, well-received Mythologies episodes, the last one for Mortal Kombat Conquest, where we're going to talk about mostly the 3 R's.
Those being Reiko, Rain, and
Mileena.
Right.
Yeah.
The 3 R's.
And the 3 R's and Reptile. Is that funny? We'll see.
I'm going to level with you, Neil. I fully forgot we were talking about Reptile and thought the bit was that Mileena was the 3rd R.
Actually, Reptile's probably the guy we're going to talk about the most.
Do you want to start with him?
Yeah, we're going to start with him. We're going to start with Reptile. All right, so we first thought we met Reptile back in the episode Twisted Truths with Brian Rath Clark and Tomas, Handsome Chin Man.
It's been a while.
That was what episode? Fuck, you think I would know?
Oh Jesus, 11?
Nope, 11
12?
11 was Thicker Than Blood. I believe it was 12. Shadow of the Doubt was 12. This was 13.
I was close.
So it was around 13 in any case, and we see a Reptile Man hiding out in Zhujian, killing bar maidens, and eventually trying to kill Kung Lao, and then killing Tomas instead, and turning invisible and scurrying away. And we're like, oh shit, Reptile's here, right?
Right.
But no, Reptile wasn't here.
A Reptile is here.
A Reptile was here.
That's that classic graffiti that you see spray painted behind all the Targets in your town. Oh, Reptile was here. And it's like WUZ.
Yeah.
Oh, did I out myself as not being near a Target because I said Z? We don't have Target anymore.
You don't have Target anymore?
Nah, Target's rollout in Canada was so historically fucking terrible that it thundered in borderline immediately.
Okay, so we're going to amend this Mythologies, and I need to hear more about this because I thought Target was just an unstoppable juggernaut.
Look, I don't have all the information. I'm not some kind of business expert, but my understanding of it is that a more local chain called Zellers had all of their stores close over a period of 10 years or something.
Wowzers.
And a couple years ago, the last one closed, but there was a lot of empty retail space, and there was a gap in the market for a Walmart competing store. Target attempted to fill that void, and I don't know why it went so badly, but it went really, really badly.
Wow.
I think part of it was supply issues. Maybe they attempted to do it too quickly. I would have to do research to give you the actual answer.
All right.
But all I know is that there were Targets in Canada long enough that I probably went into a Target 3 times or something.
Jeez. And if you, in other parts of hey, Hungary, if you have Targets over there, send in a voice message. And let
or the
us
local
know.
equivalent of a Target.
All right.
If you don't tell us, we're bullying Carlos.
Damn it, Carlos.
You narc.
I've seen the metrics. I like that we're just not actually informing anyone about what that's about.
No, we don't need to.
Yeah.
It's the lore.
Yeah.
Mythology.
All right. So we thought we had met Reptile in the show, but it turns out we had just met a Reptile. And then in the episode In Cold Blood, we finally meet just all the reptiles.
Well, we go to Zatara.
We go to Zatara. And we see that Zatara is still a realm that exists on its own. We've heard it spoken about before, right? But now we see it, and we see all the little lizard men running around, and we see the Council of Reptiles, just a big gang of dudes, and they're all dressed the same, and they all have the same powers and the same outfit.
We can't put a fine enough note on that.
Yeah.
They're all dressed exactly the same.
There's 100 of them, presumably.
In the green ninja outfit.
Yes.
The only identifying factor is the finish of the green. Some are glossy and some are matte.
Yeah. And
that's basically it.
And the man in charge, the alpha reptile,
is named Reptile.
He's got a shiny suit, and the rest of them have just a matte finish, which, honestly, the matte finish, I think, is a better look. Certainly a little more stealthy. I guess it's not a factor when you can turn invisible, but...
It's not. Also, when they're invisible, they appear to have to be in translucent reptile form.
Yeah, they got to be in lizard shape.
And that lizard shape evolves over the course of the show.
It does. It also doesn't resemble the lizard shape that we see the Reptile Man from the Mortal Kombat movie in. But,
no.
You know.
Any Mortal Kombat movie.
Oh, and we also learned that everybody's favorite Mortal Kombat characters, Kiri and Anka, were actually reptile people all along, hiding out on Earth as hot women.
Yeah, this show has a weird problem in that it can't help itself from being like, well, we have a character who needs to go to Earthrealm. How do we get them there? They don't look like they're from Earthrealm. They might be a resurrected, decaying demon, or maybe a reptile person. Oh, I know. We'll just put them in a hot body. And it's like, guys, you couldn't think of any other way to maybe do this?
It's a whole genre of television in this era is just hot people in leather. So, you know.
It's hot leather people and like I'm sure we would have gotten 8 or 9 more body swap episodes had this show continued happening because it was just what happened back then.
Yeah. Yes.
It's like when your grandpa is sitting at the dinner table at like a family gathering and he says something kind of racist and you're just like, we'll never fix him.
Yeah.
He's just like this.
Yeah. Don't worry.
All television was just like this.
Yeah. He'll be dead soon and this show will be canceled soon and we'll move on.
Oh man, I hate that our racist grandpa got canceled.
Okay.
Because there were too many body swap episodes.
Yeah. All right.
This is so stupid.
Okay. Let's get back on track here. Anyway, so the TLDR version is in Mortal Kombat Conquest. There's thousands of reptile men. Thousands of Zaterans. And in the game universe, this has honestly just never, ever been the case, right? So we're going to dip in a little bit to the origin of Reptile in the Mortal Kombat games. Classic era Reptile was a hidden character in Mortal Kombat 1 that was literally designed by taking Scorpion and Sub-Zero, mashing them into one character that had the moveset of both, and combining the yellow and the blue into green, and then naming the character Reptile because he was green.
It's real kindergarten level creativity here, but it works.
Yeah, and honestly, it was kind of rad because here's this hidden fight that you have to like get a double flawless victory on the pit stage if the witch flies in front of the moon, and then if you get that double flawless victory, you then fight Reptile at the bottom of the pit stage, which is really cool. Then in Mortal Kombat 2, they put him in as a playable character, gave him his own moveset, so he wasn't just throwing spears and shit, and built on the idea of him being an actual reptile man, right? So, Game Reptile, his real name is Syzoth, and...
Okay, I definitely forgot that.
Yeah.
Syzoth. Fucking dork.
His entire... Fucking dork. Jesus. His entire thing in the games is that he's just like... the last of his kind, or the last male of his kind, of the Saurians.
There could not be fewer Saurians compared to Mortal Kombat Conquest.
Yeah, and he is trying to find like the last remaining female member of his race.
And also moping.
And, you know, the other thing that was like wild about Conquest is while the Zaterans started out loyal to Shao Kahn, they are convinced to betray him and join up with Kriya. Game Reptile would never do that. Game Reptile is just like absolutely loyal to Shao Kahn and Shang Tsung, and then once they're out of the picture, he just pledges allegiance to Kotal Kahn.
Game Reptile loves having a boss.
Yeah, he loves it. He needs it. He can't survive without a boss because he's just a dumb lizard man who is just like slowly becoming like more and more of a primal lizard person.
Right.
Interesting, some interesting spins on Reptile. In the Malibu comic series, you see him as being, again, just hardcore loyal to Shao Kahn and just considered an outworlder, right? But the Zaterans, the Saurians, are actually descended from the dinosaurs in the game series and originate from Earthrealm as an evolution of the dinosaur people.
Right.
I guess they are the dinosaur people as an evolution of the dinosaur.
Yeah. Right. Yes.
Yeah. You could not. I mean, it's like they basically took the video game concept of Reptile and just like, okay, we're gonna It's going to look like him, but everything is going to be different.
This is it's a superficial relation.
It is. One of the big changes was in Conquest, they made Zatara an independent realm that was allied with Shao Kahn.
Worth noting, I think, for unclear reasons, Zatara has not been merged with that world.
Yeah, it really is unclear. I think the implication is that he was going to like use it as an outpost for future invasions.
Yeah, or maybe that like Reptile, by which I mean the leader of Zatara in Mortal Kombat Conquest, Reptile, like cut a deal or something, which maybe would make the betrayal a bit more significant. I really don't know. So it's not definitive.
There is one little tidbit in the first Katana episode, The Essence, where she mentions that she's able to travel from Outworld to Earthrealm through Zatara. So it could be existing literally just to be like a toll booth for his invasion, or to send spies in or whatever into Earthrealm. That's probably it. That's an option he doesn't have in the video game universe because he just crushed Zatara and there just isn't one anymore. Killed all the people except for Reptile and potentially one other, maybe two other Zatarans, or I'm going to keep calling them that. They're Saurians.
Just say, yeah, whatever. It doesn't matter.
1 to 2 other Saurians who show up in a super limited capacity, basically in 2 games each, right? And those characters are Chameleon and Chameleon.
Now, did you hear, listener? Did you listen real closely? You can hear the different spelling when you say the word chameleon.
So the one that it seems is like openly embraced as being a lady Saurian is Chameleon with a K. And it's really interesting to me that she's the one who seems to have been adopted into canon, because Chameleon with a K only appears in the Nintendo 64 version of Mortal Kombat Trilogy and the Nintendo Wii version of Mortal Kombat Armageddon. And that's it. Basically what she started out as was a palette swap of all of the lady ninjas, like, Katana, Jade, and Mileena in Mortal Kombat Trilogy, just as like an extra character, a hidden character. And she got some storyline stuff in Armageddon, apparently. I'm not going to go into all of that. That's not our show.
Right. There's a whole other show for that. You can find it.
But she is referenced as the last surviving Saurian lady, versus Chameleon with a C, the character who started out as a palette swap of all of the male ninjas. And he showed up in the Sega Saturn, Sony PlayStation, and PC versions of Mortal Kombat Trilogy, and the PlayStation 2 and Xbox versions of Mortal Kombat Armageddon. So he's technically had more game appearances. Appeared on more platforms, certainly, but for some reason there's doubt as to whether he is actually a Saurian or not.
I guess the doubt would come from whether or not he is, like, the name is a play on who that character is or what that character does.
Right.
Because he could be like a Shang Tsung shapeshifter scenario.
Right.
Say that 5 times fast.
He could just be body swapping all over the place.
Yeah, it's a real body swap episode. Yeah. Anytime Chameleon shows up.
Yeah.
Like, Chameleon shows up at a party, and it's like, oh, fuck, here we go again. Because every time you come out a corner, different guy.
Yeah, dude's a chameleon, right?
Abraham Lincoln is here now at your party. Pretty cool, right? Oh, no, now he's John Wilkes Booth, and he's shooting at himself.
Sometimes he's just leaning up against the wall, blending in with the wallpaper.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Chameleon.
That's pretty much it for Reptile. I just think it's insane that they were like, hey, there's only one of this guy. Fuck that. There's 1,000 of this guy now.
Sounds like this show has
a reptile dysfunction.
And what if they were all a completely
indistinguishable?
Yes, thank
So
you.
that raises some questions and some stuff that we need to keep an eye on in future episodes, where we are going to see reptile men show up. So canonically, Mortal Kombat Conquest is the earliest point in the storyline of this media universe we're exploring. But the first appearance of Reptile in this media universe, the Threshold Entertainment universe, or whatever you want to call it, the Lawrence verse, was in the live action Mortal Kombat movie. Our friend Paul talked about that a little bit last week, how that reptile fight scene was sort of added in or reshot because they needed more action, and it's the best part of the movie. And in that movie, you hear the announcer just say reptile, right?
And I gotta say, thank God for that. Otherwise, I don't know if we would have gotten the all-time classic song Reptile by Skrillex. If we really weren't putting that soundbite into the zeitgeist. That song's whole deal is a bunch of dubstep happens, but also you hear the word reptile. That was maybe the worst way I could have done that voice. I can definitely do it better, but I'm not going to force it.
How was that? Good.
Better.
So we see Reptile in that movie, and he's stalking around, keeping an eye on Liu Kang throughout the movie, and then gets kicked into a statue, turns humanoid with the statue, fights Liu Kang, gets beat up, and gets stomped on to death at the end of that fight. So after the first movie, we get the Mortal Kombat Defenders of the Realm cartoon series, which spun off of the movie. It's kind of like an alternate sequel versus Annihilation. And there is an episode in that where a whole bunch of reptile dudes show up. None of them are called Reptile, and I think that they even in that episode acknowledge the fact that Reptile proper was killed in the first Mortal Kombat movie.
Capital R.
Yeah, so
Reptile.
none of these guys are referred to as Reptile, but there is a leader to this tribe of reptile men, and his name is Komodai. So Defenders of the Realm was the first thing that established the idea in this universe that there's a whole bunch of these Zaterrans running around. And then we see that again in Mortal Kombat Annihilation when we've got the 3 raptors, as they're credited as, scurrying around and fighting Raiden. So the cartoon series is the reason why in this universe, in this media franchise, there's just a whole bunch of fucking reptile dudes running around. I just think it's interesting.
It's like that picture of Marge Simpson with the potato, with just I just think they're neat, but it's you holding a bunch of Zaterrans.
100%. That's exactly how I feel.
Somebody please, oh my God, Photoshop that.
If nobody else does, I will. Honestly, I love Reptile. I love a lizard man. So I'm just like, I'm here for it. They want to throw 1,000 lizard men at us over the course of this. Like, whether it's...
At a certain point, it would be tight if they distinguished some of them in a meaningful capacity.
But I do think that Defenders of the Realm thing is interesting because, you know, maybe the guy we saw in the first Mortal Kombat movie was just a reptile man, and the true leader of the Zaterrans, Komodai, who we see in Defenders of the Realm, was Shiny Reptile Man from Mortal Kombat Conquest.
Or, potentially, too confrontational. That opening was too confrontational. But, I think, yes, that argument could be made, to your point. And I guess there's also an outside chance that maybe if Reptile, who I'm just going to call Reptile for the sake of ease, had struck a deal with Shao Kahn, and that's why we see Zaterra just like doing whatever in the show, maybe it just had not been conquered yet. But by the time we get to later, it has. That's an entirely plausible
100%.
solution.
I think we're going to get some answers to this as we work our way through the rest of the series. So we're going to keep an eye on Reptile and the Reptile Men.
Stay
All right,
tuned.
speaking of characters that are going to pop up again, let's talk a little bit about Rain. There's very, very little to say about this.
He's here.
Rain shows up in Shadow of a Doubt, the Mileena episode. Basically just shows up to fuck up Kung Lao's leg and then fight with Zero. Get confronted by Kitana and run off. And Kitana mentions that she knows Rain, he's an Edenian. I mean, that lines up exactly with how he was presented in the games. He's an Edenian prince who betrayed Edenia and sided with Shao Kahn, yada, yada, yada. What I think is interesting about Rain is that he was a fake character. When they were making Mortal Kombat 3, they put Rain in the attract mode of the game, but did not put him in the game on purpose. He was created as a red herring to get people to like throw a bunch of money at Mortal Kombat 3 trying to find the hidden character. And he just wasn't in the game at all.
A real Chekhov's gun. If you establish a new character in the attract mode of your game, you have to have it go off in a secret fight.
Yeah, Rain was a prank. He was a prank.
And in Conquest, he may as well also be a prank. Because he just sort of shows up and leaves. The prank is like a really aggro episode of Punk'd where the solution is getting your leg broken.
Yeah.
This is like if Ashton Kutcher broke into your house and then broke your leg and then jumped out of your window and left.
Yes, much like as it played out in Mortal Kombat Conquest. He figuratively broke the legs of all the kids pumping quarters into Mortal Kombat 3, trying to find him. and then he just disappeared. So they did finally stick him in the game in the home console versions of Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, and then in Mortal Kombat Trilogy. Rain was in there. He was playable. His influence is obvious. He's an Edenian prince. His name is Rain, and he wears purple. It's a reference to Princess Purple Rain. And people largely hated him at the time. I think they were salty about...
The bit's kind of dumb, too, right? It's a very, Mortal Kombat, or Midway, I guess, is who this is directed at.
Yeah.
You can only do the same joke so many times.
You really... But they're not done pulling bits on us, as we'll find out in a little bit. The one thing I want to mention about Rain is that he does pop up in Mortal Kombat Annihilation, and he will show up in Defenders of the Realm also, right? Ooh. So Rain is a guy that we need to keep an eye out for moving forward.
Somebody who I'm willing to guess is not somebody we have to keep an eye on going forward is Reiko.
Somebody who we also don't need to keep an eye on moving forward and is also a prank.
You fucking pieces of shit. You can't keep doing this. You simply can't. It's unsustainable.
Yeah. So we all know Reiko, everybody's favorite Mortal Kombat character.
Middle manager.
From his appearances in 2 episodes of Conquest as basically middle manager of Outworld, right?
Potentially his best appearance in Mortal Kombat canon.
Honestly, I mean, yeah.
I like Reiko. He's a dweeb, but I like that he's around and he looks like that. He looks like a used car salesman who's still really into Kiss.
He's Outworld's Dwight Schrute.
He lacks the unself-aware zaniness of a Dwight Schrute.
Sure.
He's got all of his social... He can read social cues. I think he's just a dork.
I mean, he can read them in Conquest. I'm not sure he can read them outside of that. So Reiko in the games debuted in Mortal Kombat 4. He wasn't in the first version of that game that went out to arcades, but he was in the updated version. Not gold, but just like the revision to the arcade model. Because he was originally Noob Saibot in the game, but they wanted to pull Noob Saibot out for 2 reasons. The first being... Apparently, people were complaining that on certain stages, Noob Saibot was very hard to see against the dark backgrounds, which makes sense.
Oh, I know. We'll make them red.
And the other reason was because they felt like there were just too many ninjas in Mortal Kombat 4. They were like, all right, we got a smaller roster. About half these characters are ninjas. Let's get rid of one of them, right? Mortal Kombat 4, oops, all ninjas. So they pulled Noob Saibot out of the game. They took his gi and they... turned it from the apron from black to this maroon color. They slapped a Brotherhood of Shadows logo on the back to show that he's a bad guy siding with Shinnok, and they just swapped the head out for Reiko's head. And an interesting little bit of trivia. So in Mortal Kombat 4, to kind of reference their motion capture, I mean, they still did motion capture for a lot of the animation, I believe, but instead of having like the photorealism, since they were doing CGI models, they did try to do face models that referenced people at Midway, like the guy who did Quan Chi, who played Quan Chi in Mythologies. Like they modeled Quan Chi's face in Mortal Kombat 4 after that guy, and they modeled Reiko's face after Ed Boon. So Mortal Kombat 4 Reiko is Ed Boon.
Is that an honor, do you think? Does Ed Boon think like, fuck yeah, I am Reiko, tight?
I think Ed Boon was the one who was like, sure, I'll be Reiko. Like, I honestly think it's more that.
Sure. Somebody had to be Reiko.
Yeah, all right. Somebody's got to be Reiko. It might as well be me, the boss.
I'm almost picturing, like, everybody at Midway was like, oh, shit, we're having the Reiko meeting.
Yeah.
And everybody, like, goes into this conference room. There's, like, a whiteboard or whatever. It just says Reiko on it in big letters. And there's a bunch of question marks. And, like, who the fuck is Reiko?
Yeah.
What's his deal? And then they had a whole bunch of straws. And then everybody had to draw straws, and somebody was going to have to be Reiko.
Ed Boon walks into the meeting, and he goes, okay, time to decide who's going to be the face model for Reiko. Then he turns around, and everybody else in the meeting has their finger on their nose in that classic not it.
He turns around, and there's a mirror where the whiteboard should be, and he's like, oh, fuck, I'm Reiko.
The room is empty. Everyone just left when he turned his back.
Just, like, dives under tables and furniture so they can't be seen anymore.
So Reiko in Mortal Kombat 4 is modeled after Ed Boon. Also, Reiko kind of sucks, right?
Yeah, it's a cop.
Yeah. There was a big controversy when he debuted based on his ending in Mortal Kombat 4. There's no speaking or anything in his ending. His ending is just he steps through a portal And on the other side of the portal, he emerges in Shao Kahn's throne room. And Shao Kahn's helmet is then like lowered onto his head, right? That's how they ended Reiko's story in Mortal Kombat 4.
Yeah, he wants to be the boss.
This led to a huge division among fans, with a bunch of people claiming this must mean that Reiko is secretly Shao Kahn reincarnated, and other people saying
that's a logic leap.
And some people saying there's no way that that's Shao Kahn. It's a new character. He's not as tall as Shao Kahn, etc. Right? But I can see the hype. I can see the people thinking like, oh, look at that. At the end of the game, it's revealed that Reiko is actually Shao Kahn and he's returned. You know, you could buy that.
Sure.
But the controversy was so bad that people were just arguing about it online like crazy. One of the pieces of evidence people presented to say Shao Kahn is not Reiko is using Mortal Kombat Conquest as evidence. Like, look, they're in this show, two separate people. Clearly, Reiko is not Shao Kahn, right? To which everyone just replied,
"That's Mortal Kombat Conquest."
That bullshit. That's Mortal Kombat Conquest. Mortal Kombat Conquest doesn't count. He put Shao Kahn's helmet on. That means he's actually Shao Kahn, back from the dead. But finally Midway stepped in and they were like, you know what, we're gonna provide a definitive answer, a definitive proof that Reiko is not Shao Kahn, and we're gonna do this in Mortal Kombat Deception's Conquest mode,
which is really the long con to convince people to watch Mortal Kombat Conquest.
Yes,
that's why they put it in Conquest mode.
Yes, so they connecting.
This is cerebral shit.
Connecting threads, like we already showed you on the TV show, but y'all didn't want to listen. So
now we're gonna cerebro your ass.
So there's a mission, a fetch quest you can do in Deception, where as you're playing as Shujinko, the protagonist of that game, you go to Shao Kahn, and Shao Kahn tells you to take a message to Reiko. And the message you're supposed to deliver to Reiko is a warning.
He must win.
Yes. So for starters, they're saying Shao Kahn wants you to go deliver something to Reiko. Right. Boom. Two different characters. But we're going to rub it in a little bit more. The warning message that you're delivering to Reiko is that Shao Kahn has heard rumors that Reiko's been sneaking into his chamber to wear his helmet. And he needs to fucking knock it off.
I love the idea that became so urgent an issue.
Yeah.
That couldn't just be addressed when Reiko came home or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, no.
No,
we're discussing it now.
They really wanted you to be the one to deliver the message. And I think Reiko's response to that is like, oh yeah, sometimes I do like to sneak in there and put his helmet on or something like that. So fucking stupid. Right. So that settles it. That settled the controversy between that little mission in Deception and of course Reiko being a playable character in Armageddon and Shao Kahn also being a playable character. You could settled law, two different characters. We all know it. We've all accepted it since then. I just think it's funny that there was a time when people were actually confused and had this theory. And that was also kind of bolstered by an interview in 2012 that John Tobias did on James Fink's On Blast show. That's not something I'm familiar with, but I did find this footnote in the wiki. John Tobias basically says they did have early plans, playing with the idea that there was somehow a way that Shao Kahn was reincarnated and after he died and would eventually again become Shao Kahn. And they were kind of playing with that idea with Reiko, but they never actually committed to it. And John Tobias left the series during the development of Mortal Kombat 4, so those plans were never really seen through. But I can see where that idea, kind of lines up with this theory that Reiko may have been Shao Kahn in hiding, but that's not the universe that we ever got, right?
Right.
So
we'll never know for sure.
Yeah. So once again, pranks on pranks over here in Mortal Kombat games.
People are not getting baited in the show; they are getting pranked.
Yeah.
You run into the woods and try to rescue somebody who's in a crisis. Pranked.
Yes.
we killed your boyfriend. Pranked.
Big spiky log swings down and almost kills you. Ooh, you just barely dodged that prank. Man, you almost got pranked. You almost got pranked to death, Taja.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I mean it. Thematically, man. Jeez, Mortal Kombat Conquest really is pretty damn faithful to the spirit of Mortal Kombat.
What with all these pranks?
Yeah, a series well known for its metatextual pranks. Did I use that right? Who cares? Let's continue.
It was right enough.
All right. So speaking of John Tobias and Mortal Kombat Conquest, I do want to touch on this thread that showed up on Twitter recently. I'm going to give the ats here. A guy named Dave Savage, at Dave Savage 1982, tweeted at Real Cybot, discussing just some lore about Mortal Kombat and Shang Tsung in general and what his role is, right? So John Tobias writes back with the thread, and I'm not going to read the whole thread. I think I will see if we can put a link to this in the show notes. The version of the thread that jumps out to me is that as he's talking about how Shang Tsung was originally an Earthrealm fighter representing Earthrealm in Mortal Kombat, but sort of born of two worlds. The one thing he says is that he maybe had one parent from Earthrealm and one parent from Outworld, so he's sort of torn between these two realms. He starts off as a good guy, but then gets seduced by the power of being evil and sides with Outworld, and becomes their champion until he loses to Kung Lao, in which case he, in John Tobias's early storyline, disappears for several years and returns with Goro, Prince of the Shokan, as the new representative of Outworld and becomes the sponsor of the tournament, right? He does say in this that all of that stuff isn't new info. In fact, the old MK Conquest TV series explored events after the Great Kung Lao's victory over Shang. In that show, Shang was dragged back to Outworld and imprisoned in the cobalt mines of Kuatan, where he plotted revenge. It's deep lore. And that right there...
Y'all gotta catch up. We've been knowing this information. We're over here hanging out with John Tobias, watching Mortal Kombat Conquest, bunch of dorks. Look at how right we've been this whole show. See? We're
Hell yeah.
vindicated. This has been worth our time.
Yeah, honestly, yes. This is...
It's that deep lore, baby.
It is. And I could go deeper. I could dig into the Jeff Roven novel showing Shang Tsung sort of developing the idea of the Mortal Kombat tournament. Shang Tsung, a demon from Outworld reborn on Earthrealm, takes generations for him to get his memories back and remember his mission. But this, you know, that's kind of like wild and insane shit compared to what we got in Mortal Kombat Conquest, which does in fact line up with the early canon for Shang Tsung in the Mortal Kombat games universe. I think we can absolutely consider that Shang Tsung backstory, maybe that whole episode in general, to be official Mortal Kombat canon.
Yeah, and I think beyond that, you know, I don't want to become too much the kind of person who is really, really nitpicky about what is and isn't going to decide canon or lore or whatever, but I think it's pretty apparent, and this is sort of just helping our case, that this show's canon as hell. It's setting up a lot of stuff that is like consistent enough that we can find a way to explain it.
Yeah.
Or there's stuff like this that's just pretty definitive.
Right. And it was, again, it was early canon stuff, and obviously the storylines evolved and changed as the games continued, and you've got timeline resets here and there. You got different people writing the stories. John Tobias leaves. You know, the stories continue on without him. You know, and so we get some weird shit in Conquest, like our weird ass Noob Saibot and our weird ass Scorpion origin stories and all of those kinds of things.
We like to call that the Scorpio origins.
But a lot of those things were being written for the show before they had really been explored in the storylines of the games. So
the show was just too good, and then they retconned it all with the games.
Sure, that's it. That's 100% what happened. So I don't know. Consider it a Chronica timeline reset where details had to change here and there, but certain things stay consistent, right?
It's actually just for all of the real fans.
There you go. Yes. Is this our declaration? Are we declaring Mortal Kombat Conquest the definitive Mortal Kombat canon?
Yes.
Okay. Done.
I'm not going to think twice about that. Yes.
All right. Well, if we're going to do that, there's one more thing we probably need to address, which is how wildly different Mileena is versus how she is in the games.
This is Mileena with 3 E's.
This is a short one, honestly. We all know who Mileena is in the Mortal Kombat games universe, right? She is the mostly Kitana, part Tarkatan clone of Kitana. Boy, that's a confusing way to say it. She is the clone. She's a clone of Kitana combined with Tarkatan blood to be loyal to Shao Kahn and vicious should Kitana have ever learned the actual origin of her realm being destroyed and her parents being killed and suicided due to Shao Kahn. Should he ever need to replace Kitana, he's got Mileena kind of hanging out in the wings, right? And in the games, Mileena's got a couple different storylines, right? There's the original canon storyline where she grew up with Kitana as her sister, essentially, right? Where Kitana and Mileena kind of grew up as sisters, and we actually see them in Shaolin monks with Jade, the three of them. There's like a boss battle where you have to fight the three of them. And then we've got like the timeline reset universe where Kitana didn't even know about Mileena's existence and just sort of finds her in like Shao Kahn's like gross laboratory where she'd been grown and made. But and then there's depictions of their origin in like Mortal Kombat Legends, and there's a whole one-shot comic book from the Malibu series, Mortal Kombat Kitana and Mileena, that also tells the same story about Shao Kahn conquering Edenia, adopting Kitana, wiping her memory or getting her while she was so young that he's able to raise her as his own, and then making her a clone sister that would be even more loyal to him, etc. Versus what we see in Mortal Kombat Conquest, where Mileena was just some kind of wild uggo he found in the wastelands, and he used magic to make her look like Kitana, and then when she failed her mission to kill Kung Lao, he just kind of turned her back to being half ugly and made her wear a mask on her face.
Once again, this show shows its entire ass by having an entire character be based around the concept of, we don't think you're hot, so we're going to make you hot, but with a monkey's paw effect attached to it. Why does this keep happening?
I don't know. Also, this is kind of fucking wild. I'm just realizing we actually had 2 body swap episodes, didn't we? On Mortal Kombat Conquest. We had Mileena pretending to be Kitana, and then we had Quan Chi.
Is that what that
Mika.
was?
Well,
I guess that is what that is. It's a mistaken identity. Well, not mistaken. It was a lie.
It was the same.
It was not a mistake.
I mean, it was the same as the Quan Chi and Mika thing where it's the same. I don't know that I really want to get into the specifics of the body swap genre right now.
Let's not. We simply do not have the resources or time.
Yeah, certainly. Just wanted to touch on Mileena a little bit for anyone who may not know. We will be seeing her again.
Yeah, so does Kung Lao. Please cut that out. Please.
Okay, don't worry. And
so stupid.
Can I leave it in now?
I don't know. We can reconvene. When you hit this part of the edit, message me and I'll decide.
Because I think it'll be really funny if I say I'm going to do it and then I don't.
You're the editor, pal.
All right. It's probably coming out. All right, but I think that kind of wraps us up for this Mythologies episode, the last one of the Mortal Kombat Conquest storyline. I don't know if we're going to see more of these in the future. I bet there's going to be stuff that's going to come up here and there. Certainly, if we do in fact decide to cover all of the Malibu comics, there is just nothing but wild changes in that. It's kind of nuts.
Every episode almost becomes a Mythologies at that point because everything is so significantly different that
what we may have
most of what the time you're spending is unpacking all the different shit.
You know what we may have to do?
Tell me.
We're gonna very quickly run out of Neil Nook content.
So the Neil Nook will become a new thing.
The Neil Nook may have to become a Mythologies segment where I'm talking about those things and also dipping into what ties back to Conquest and what changes from Conquest. So, yeah, we'll figure that out, though.
Cool.
Anyway, we will be back next week with the penultimate episode.
The beginning of the end.
Of Mortal Kombat Conquest, Stolen Lies, where Shao Kahn launches his most insidious attack ever on the Earth realm.
Do you think they're going to use the song Tell Me Lies in the episode? And it's going to be canon that, like, some bard in Zhuzhen wrote it?
Yes, and that person in Zhuzhen is probably played by Suzanne Stokes, who is credited as Babe.
What? There's somebody whose whole credit is Babe?
In that episode of Mortal Kombat Conquest, Stolen Lies, there is a woman who is credited as Babe.
Is that a confidence booster, do you think?
I mean, if we're thinking 90s babes, this is a 90s babe.
What does that mean?
Blonde, buxom, etc.
Maybe we don't need the descriptor in there.
Yeah.
I just didn't know what you meant. I literally didn't know.
But Good news for you, Corey. This is the episode where we get horny Raiden, I think.
Oh, good.
Horny, horny, horny.
You know what we needed more of? Horniness and Raiden. Together at last. It's like chocolate and peanut butter.
Finally.
God, he's finally fulfilling his gym coach vibe by being gross.
But for now, I think we should get out of here. Much like Noob Saibot, we should be removed from Mortal Kombat 4. We should be removed from this podcast and replaced with Ed Boon.
Yes.
Corey, what do you have to plug?
The usual. You can go listen to They Made Another One, which is a podcast I do with my friend Liam that Neil is sometimes on. And we are talking about sequels, reboots, remakes, all that sort of stuff. I think the episode is about Teen Wolf 2. You can find that on Twitter at They Made Another, Letterboxd TMAO, and all your podcast services. It's just They Made Another One. ! I'm on Twitter. You already know that. I'll leave it there.
And you can find me on Twitter at FinalNeil. Find my Retro Gaming Instagram account on the gram at FinalNeilRetro. Follow this show on Twitter, Instagram at MK Podquest. Subscribe to the show. Give us good reviews. Check us out on YouTube. Link in the description. And send in your voice messages through our anchor page or at mkpodquest@gmail.com. Thoughts about the show Mortal Kombat Conquest. Thoughts about the movies coming up. Memories of the cartoon series. Whatever you got. Send them all in. We love it. Honestly, we love it. Thank you again, Dom, for that incredible song. Oh my God.
Oh God, yeah. What an unreal thing, and also just an unreasonable use of your time. Thank you very much for that.
It's fantastic, and we are going to play it.
Unbelievable.
We are going to play it like crazy.
Till the wheels fall off.
And I think that's it. I'm going to stop recording.
Zero, Taza, Vorpax, Mika, Kiri, Ometus, Kriya, MK Podquest.
Mythologies.